what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to sort of transform our minds to 20 years in the future and think, okay, what do we think science and maths education should be like? What would be really good for it to be like then? And we've got an idea about what we like now and what we don't like now. We've got to have a sense of what the future's going to be like. We can't predict the future, but we can have a sense of the way things might go. And what we'd like from you is, I want this to be really quite interactive. So what we'd like from you is to think about, in the future, and let's just say 20 years, what sort of things should we be learning about in science and maths? How should we be learning it? And who needs to be involved in that? Now, feel free to be quite wacky in your ideas, that's fine, but you don't have to be. The ultimate thing we'd really, really love to get from you is a bit of a manifesto, so that you'd be saying, you know, if you had the chance to go to David Cameron and say, this is what we should be focusing on for the future. Here are 3 points. One which says, this is what we should be learning in science and maths. This is how we should be doing it, and this is who needs to make it happen. That would be wonderful. Why do we actually learn science and maths? Not why are we taught it, but why do we learn it? Why is it useful for us to have? And I thought if we just take 5 minutes, if you can talk amongst yourselves about why we learn science and maths, why we would be learning it 20 years in the future, and then say what sort of things are going to be useful. And that could be whether you're going to go on to be a scientist or whether you're not.
For some people, I think there's like a difference. Some people maybe use belief to understand big questions in our life, but some people want to use truth and knowledge to answer questions.
It seems that us understanding about science has created global warming, but because of science we know about global warming.
You've got people who are just like, this is dull and it has no application, but if you showed them what it could do, then they'd find
like
it.
stuff down on the...
Okay. Who came up with something good about why we study science and maths, and particularly why we should study it in the future? Anybody got a good why?
So we can make like really well-informed decisions about what we do in everyday life, what we eat, and then also bigger decisions about recycling, and we can just justify it.
Every single job or task problem that you possibly think of, you need some mathematical skills and logical mind to solve them.
Maybe focusing on getting the majority of people's understanding up to a high level, rather than effectively picking out people that we know are going to do well and saying, you know, and channeling them into, you know, institutions that are going to help them with science more.
A bit more on the what. Have we got something from this table on the what?
We think that we should make learning, especially in A-level, relevant to more current affairs and problems within the environment or within the world.
Especially at GCSE, should be more based around the application of things that you get. Like she said, that there's so many people who on their GCSE courses are just like, this is so dull, I'm never going to need trigonometry in my entire life. And yet if you showed them like the applications of it in real life, then perhaps it would be more interesting to them.
Especially in maths, you've got to, if you have something, you may think, I don't know where to start on this, and it's looking at approaching things is very important, because even if you're not doing a maths problem, developing problem solving can be applied to practically anything, because we're always encountering problems in life.
So how should we be learning it? Is it on a need-to-know basis? Do you wait until you need a bit of information, then you go away and learn it? And who needs to be involved? Obviously the learner, but beyond them, teachers, as we think of teachers now, in schools, industry, people who are out there using that, academics and sort of further at higher education, and who are the people who should decide how we learn?
I have an idea of kind of what to do, and kind of thinking about further education once you've kind of finished what everyone needs to meet, like integrating maths and science culturally. So when you have an art exhibition explaining how maths and science fit into that in some way, and then when you're using technology, being able to have like a basic understanding of what the technology is doing.
I think it's quite important to like focus on how the world's changing, because like as the world sort of population is growing, like we need to allocate resources and things in different manners. So we need to think I think it needs to encourage different ways of thinking.
Because some teachers are quite outgoing and they like doing practical stuff, and others prefer textbooks and just talking a lot. And some people that I know prefer just reading a textbook and just more freedom with learning, sort of like college and university style, so you can choose when you want to learn.
Also then for who would teach and stuff, it'd be useful to have specialists in science and people in science careers to come in to talk to people, because that's more inspiring.
And I think kids need to learn when they need to do it themselves, rather than repeatedly being told when they have to do things.
What I'd like each table to do is to come up with the manifesto, the thing that theoretically we could take to the government, to the Prime Minister, and say, this is our vision of what we think science and maths learning education should be like. Which are the things that are most important? I've picked up inspiration, personalised choice, context, problem solving, more like the real world, all kinds of things like that. You've heard them all, you've got some written down yourself.
Or the whole ask teachers to come along, ask their friends to come along and discuss.
Protests and campaigns and things, nobody does things like that these days.
By the uniform, you've got to turn
Yeah.
up, you've got to stay there from this time to that time, you've got to do these lessons.
So we've got a new way of assessing teachers about how passionate they are about the subject that they teach. A new way of students being assessed, such as continuous assessment. And education based around future life, such as what careers you could get out of learning what you are learning.
Make learning relevant to current affairs so that subjects are taught in context.
Match student personalities with the teacher's methods, so visual, kinesthetic and auditory learners.
Pupils and students should have input with the government on UK-wide educational decisions. For example, a panel from different regions that give ideas. Lots of different ways of kind of learning outside of school and being able to kind of bring the learning environment with you, and using museums and resources in different ways to what should be expected, and generally less limitations on how you learn, being more independent.
There should be more options to learn what you want and what level you want to learn it to, instead of how the curriculum says what you have to learn.
And we also think there should be the ability to enter exams how you want, so assessment is more fluid, so instead of having to go and sit your exams, you can choose how you want to show off your knowledge.
Thank you very much indeed. We are all quite excited. We love what you've come up with. The fact that some of these ideas reinforce things that we've talked about previously. Some of them are completely different, but what makes it most important is that they've come from you. We're really, really thrilled.